Siri Lamb with a brief discussion about using charts in Google Sheets in preparation for the Level 1 Educator exam. So I have this table here of some sample student data. I have the student names over here. It goes through each of the months. It gives a score that each of the students got in that particular month. And this last column here is the average function in order and formula in order to determine the student's yearly average. And in this bottom column over here, in row 10 is the class average in each month, and here is the class average for the year. But if we wanted to be able to visualize this, we want to add some charts. So I'm going to go to Insert, and I'm going to choose Chart. Now, when I go to insert a chart, I have options of a number of different kinds of charts. The first thing that happens is a chart pops up here, whatever the sheet seems to think I'm most looking for. But what also opens up is this chart editor sidebar that I can use to customize the chart, to change it around, to play around with things. So here, if you look at chart type, you'll see that there are lots of different chart types, and they do have always a couple of suggested charts that work with the data set that you have. But if you scroll down, you can use a wide variety of different kinds of charts. Line charts are excellent for tracking data over time because they give you that kind of visual over time. Column charts are really good for comparison. Pies are great to see what percentage something is out of a whole. If you go further down, they have some other cool kinds of strange charts. But that is what the kind of the chart. Now in this case, we do want to use a line chart, but once we've chosen our chart, now it's time to make sure that all the information that we have is relevant. So this next place is data range, and that's the range of the data that I have. Now, when I look here, I realize that the student average is also in this chart, which I'm not sure I want to see because right now I just kind of want to see the different students and how they did over the year without getting the student average mixed in there. So in this case, I'm going to change my range to L9 instead, in order for that last line to disappear. Now I have my axis. On my x-axis, I have the students, and then I have the series of each of the students added in there. Now, this is an important button, switching rows and columns. If your chart doesn't do what you want it to do, you can sometimes switch the charts and the columns. See, what happened here when I switched it is it went from being a line about every student to right now being a line about every month, which in this case I don't want. In this case, I actually do like that I kept the rows and columns, but a lot of times if you don't like what you see, you can change that. Now, if you have column headers in column A, then you should indicate that, then you should check this off. In this case, these are our headers, and whether or not you want to use row 1 as labels. Then once you've gotten your basic chart, you can go to customize. In the customize section, you can customize almost anything. You can change the background color for your chart. You can change your font. Now, pressing on these different things like this will give you a more wiggly line. You can go through these different options, play around, see what happens. Next, you have the titles. In this case, I don't want all the kids' names as the title. Instead, I want student averages as my title. So I've changed that here, but again, I can change the font, I can change the font size, I can change the color. In this series, if I wanted to, I could change what the name, like the little thing that's next to everybody's name. So you see, I could have all the data points represented as stars. In this case, I'm going to go back and keep them represented the way that they were, which was no point sizes, circle. So we're not really seeing anything, but you could have that if you want. You can determine how thick the line is, where the axis is. You could put trend lines that kind of measure in general, the angle of the trend that goes on. You can label your data, which is often very confusing. Again, click around in these different settings in order to see what you can use. Then is the legend, which is this space right here. Again, you can customize that. You can customize your axes. And if you wanted to, you could also add grid lines wherever you wanted to. Now, once you are happy with your table, you can click out of it. Now, this table over here is highly movable. I could put it anywhere in my table that I wanted. And when I click on these three dots over here, I have the option to publish the chart, which I can then share as either a link or as an embed code in my website. And what's really interesting is it asks me if I only want to publish the table or the chart, or if I would like to publish the entire table. That's where my option is for the entire document. And I also have the choice if I want to keep this chart interactive or if I want it as a flat image. If I keep it as interactive, what that means is that as the data changes, so does this chart. Another thing that I can do here is I can move the chart to its own sheet, which if you see right down here, it's created another sheet for me called Chart 1, and now the chart is its own big thing. And from here, I can still copy, edit, publish, save, delete, things like that. So if I wanted to bring my chart back here, if you look over here, another thing that I can do is I can copy it. And if I have a Google Doc or Google Slides, I can actually import my charts into either Google Docs or into Google Slides. And so those are some of the neat things that you can do with charts in Google Sheets. Now, one last point is if I have student data and I am sharing this with somebody else, right? I'm sharing this with my co-teacher, I'm sharing this with somebody else that I know, and I'd like them to be able to see my data, but I want to be very sure that they can't change this information. So Google Sheets has something called protected sheets and protected ranges. If I go to the data tool, the data tab, I can go to protected sheets and ranges. And over here, I have a few options. So I'm going to start with adding a sheet. I'm just going to select this data, and you see it automatically. Well, it should. Here, hold on a second. Now I'm going to select my range. See, and it updates just like that. I press OK. Now I'm going to go ahead and set permissions. So I have a couple of options. I could just say that if somebody edits this, I'd like to get a warning. Or I can restrict who can edit this range. I can have it either only me, or I can customize it and add specific people. Now that means that when I share this sheet with somebody else, they can see everything, but they can no longer change the data that I have put in. And this is very helpful when you have sensitive data that you don't want to change. And again, you can either protect the entire sheet, or you can protect particular ranges in a specific sheet. I hope that this